What happens if you pour wood ash straight into your tulip bed? Some gardeners swear it turns weak, floppy stems into thick, upright stalks topped with bigger, brighter blooms almost overnight. Others pour it on and watch their tulips wilt, yellow, and die within days. So which one is it, miracle fix or garden killer? Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what wood ash does to tulips, and more importantly, exactly how to use it so you get the miracle and not the mistake. Before we dig in, if you're the kind of grower who likes real answers instead of guesswork, hit that subscribe button right now. We break down exactly what's happening inside your soil and your plants every single week, so you stop guessing and start growing with confidence. Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with the basics. What is wood ash actually made of? When you burn wood, whether it's from your fireplace, a bonfire, or a wood stove, you're left with a fine, powdery residue. That residue isn't just burnt leftovers. It's actually a surprisingly rich concentration of minerals that were locked inside the tree while it was alive. Think of a tree as a slow-motion mineral pump. For decades, its roots pull calcium, potassium, magnesium, and trace elements up from deep in the soil and store them in the trunk, branches, and bark. When you burn that wood, the carbon and water burn off as smoke and gas, but the minerals don't disappear. They concentrate into the ash that's left behind. The single biggest player in wood ash is calcium. Depending on the type of wood, calcium can make up anywhere from 20 to 50% of the ash by weight. Calcium does two important jobs. First, it acts like a natural liming agent, which means it raises the pH of acidic soil, making it less sour and more neutral. Second, calcium itself is a nutrient that plants use to build strong cell walls. Think of it as the mortar that holds a plant's cellular bricks together. The second major component is potassium, and this is actually where wood ash got its old-fashioned nickname, potash, literally pot ash, because early farmers used to leach ashes in a pot to extract the potassium-rich liquid. Potassium is a mobile nutrient inside the plant, meaning it moves to wherever it's needed most. It regulates how a plant opens and closes the tiny pores on its leaves, controls water movement inside plant tissue, and plays a huge role in helping a plant produce strong flowers and store energy. Beyond calcium and potassium, wood ash also contains smaller but meaningful amounts of magnesium, which is a core building block of chlorophyll, the green pigment plants use to capture sunlight. There are also trace amounts of phosphorus, along with micronutrients like manganese, zinc, copper, and boron. Tiny amounts that plants only need in small doses, but that are essential for enzyme activity and healthy growth. What wood ash is almost completely missing, though, is nitrogen. Nitrogen is a volatile element, and when wood burns, nearly all of the nitrogen escapes into the air as gas. So wood ash is essentially a concentrated dose of calcium and potassium, a smaller amount of magnesium, a few trace minerals, and virtually no nitrogen at all. It's also naturally alkaline, meaning it has a high pH, often somewhere between pH 9 and pH 13, depending on the wood source. That alkalinity is the single most important thing to understand before you ever use it near your tulips, and we'll come back to exactly why in a few minutes. Now let's flip over to the tulip itself, because understanding what a tulip actually needs is what makes this whole conversation click into place. A tulip isn't like a leafy vegetable that needs constant nitrogen to keep pumping out new leaves. A tulip is a bulb plant, and everything about its biology is built around one single goal: storing enough energy in that underground bulb to survive winter and burst back to life next spring. The nutrient tulips crave most is potassium. Potassium is directly responsible for helping the bulb build up its internal energy reserves. After the tulip finishes blooming, its leaves keep photosynthesizing for several weeks, sending sugars and energy back down into the bulb for next year. Potassium is the nutrient that manages that entire transport process. Without enough potassium, a tulip bulb ends up thin, energy poor, and far less likely to produce a strong flower the following spring. That's actually one of the biggest reasons tulips seem to wear out in a garden after just 1 or 2 seasons. Right behind potassium, tulips also rely heavily on calcium. Calcium strengthens the cell walls in the stem, which is exactly why a well-fed tulip stands upright and sturdy, while a calcium-starved tulip tends to flop over, especially after rain or wind. Calcium is also involved in how well a bulb resists rot and fungal disease during storage and dormancy, which matters a lot for a plant that spends most of the year sitting quietly underground. Now here's where it gets interesting. Those are exactly the two nutrients wood ash provides in the biggest quantities. Calcium for strong stems and disease resistance, potassium for bulb energy storage and next year's blooms. It's almost a textbook match. But tulips have one more major requirement that has nothing to do with nutrients directly: soil pH. Tulips generally prefer soil that is neutral to slightly acidic, somewhere around pH 6 to 7. They can tolerate a bit of alkalinity, but they do not thrive in soil that's pushed too far toward the alkaline end. And remember what we just said about wood ash. It's naturally alkaline, sometimes dramatically so. This is the exact tension that makes wood ash such a "it depends" answer for tulips. If your soil is already on the acidic side, common in areas with heavy rainfall, pine trees nearby, or naturally acidic clay, a modest amount of wood ash can nudge the pH toward neutral, while also feeding the bulb exactly the calcium and potassium it wants. But if your soil is already neutral or alkaline, adding wood ash pushes the pH too high, and that's when nutrient uptake starts to shut down, even if the nutrients are technically present in the soil. High pH essentially locks certain nutrients away, out of reach of the plant's roots, which is the opposite of what you want. Used correctly, wood ash can genuinely be a fantastic, free, natural fertilizer for tulips. It delivers a concentrated boost of calcium for sturdier stems, potassium for bigger and longer-lasting blooms, and it can gently correct overly acidic soil so your tulips can actually access the nutrients already sitting in the ground. Many experienced growers use light applications of wood ash every fall as part of their bulb bed prep, and they get noticeably fuller, more vibrant tulip displays for it. There's also a nice side benefit. The alkaline nature of wood ash makes the soil surface a little less inviting to soft-bodied pests like slugs and snails, which love to snack on young tulip shoots. But here's the warning, and I want you to really hear this part. Wood ash is powerful precisely because it's concentrated, and concentrated things are just as capable of causing harm as they are of causing good. If you apply too much, apply it too often, or apply it to soil that's already neutral or alkaline, you're not feeding your tulips, you're chemically burning them. Too much wood ash spikes the soil pH into territory where tulip roots simply cannot absorb iron, manganese, and other essential micronutrients anymore. The plant can be standing in enough nutrients and still starve because the pH has locked the door shut. On top of that, wood ash is naturally high in soluble salts. Dump on too much, especially in a small or contained bed, and you create a salty environment that pulls moisture out of the bulb's root system through basic osmotic pressure, the same reason salting a slug makes it shrivel. Symptoms of overuse show up as scorched browning leaf tips, stunted or twisted growth, and in bad cases, a bulb that simply rots or fails to sprout at all the following year. The line between helpful mineral boost and root-damaging overdose with wood ash is thinner than most people realize, which is exactly why the next section, the application method, matters so much. Here's exactly how to apply wood ash to your tulips safely and effectively. Step 1. Test your soil pH first. This is not optional if you want reliable results. A simple soil pH test kit or meter costs very little and takes minutes. If your soil pH is below 6.5, you're a good candidate for wood ash. If it's already at 7 or higher, skip the wood ash entirely and use a different amendment instead. Step 2. Use only clean, untreated wood ash. That means ash from natural, untreated firewood, no charcoal briquettes, no ash from treated or painted wood, and no ash with leftover chunks of unburned material or plastic residue. Treated wood can contain chemicals that are genuinely toxic to plants and soil life. Step 3. Sift the ash. Run it through a basic garden sieve or even a piece of window screen to remove any large chunks, nails, or debris. You want a fine, uniform powder. Step 4. Measure carefully. For an established tulip bed, apply no more than a light dusting, roughly 1 cup of sifted wood ash per 10 square feet of bed. That's the equivalent of a thin, even sprinkle, not a visible layer. If you're working with potted tulips, cut that down even further to about a teaspoon per gallon of soil, mixed in rather than surface applied. Step 5. Apply it to dry soil around the base of the plants, keeping it a few inches away from direct contact with the bulb or emerging shoots. Wood ash applied directly onto wet leaves or stems can cause irritation, so brush off any that lands on foliage. Step 6. Water it in lightly after applying. This helps the minerals begin dissolving into the soil where roots can access them, rather than sitting on the surface where they're more likely to blow away or wash off unevenly. Step 7. Work it gently into the top inch or 2 of soil with a hand rake or cultivator rather than leaving it just sitting on top. This helps it integrate evenly and reduces the risk of a concentrated pocket of ash sitting right against one unlucky bulb. That's it. A light, even, well-timed application is the entire secret. More is not better here. Timing is where a lot of well-meaning gardeners go wrong, so let's be very clear about this. Do not apply wood ash when tulips are actively flowering. During bloom, the plant's energy is focused on the flower itself, and disturbing the root zone or spiking the pH during this delicate window can shorten bloom life and stress the plant unnecessarily. Do not apply it to frozen, waterlogged, or heavily saturated soil. Wet soil means the concentrated minerals and salts in the ash can move too quickly and unevenly, increasing the risk of root burn. Frozen soil means the ash just sits on the surface doing nothing useful until a thaw sends it into the soil all at once, in an uncontrolled way. Do not apply it during the heat of summer dormancy for tulips that have already been lifted, or right after planting fresh bulbs, since new roots are still delicate and easily stressed by shifts in soil chemistry. The ideal time to apply wood ash to tulips is in the fall, at the same time you're preparing your bulb beds or right after you've planted new bulbs but before the ground freezes. This gives the calcium and potassium time to slowly integrate into the soil over the dormant winter months, so it's fully available right as the tulip begins actively growing roots in late winter and early spring. A second acceptable window is very early spring, just as the first shoots are beginning to emerge from the soil, but before any flower buds have formed. As for frequency, less is more. Wood ash should not be a regular, repeated feeding like a liquid fertilizer. For tulip beds, 1 light application per year in fall is typically enough. If you're correcting notably acidic soil, you might do a second light application the following fall, but always retest your soil pH before repeating. Once your soil reaches that sweet spot around pH 6.5 to 7, stop applying wood ash altogether, or you'll simply overshoot into alkaline territory and undo all the good you've done. So how long until you actually see something happen? Because wood ash works through gradual soil chemistry changes rather than a fast nutrient jolt, patience is part of the process. In the first 1 to 2 weeks after a fall application, you likely won't see any visible change at all, and that's completely normal because the tulip bulb is dormant underground, quietly absorbing calcium and potassium while the minerals settle into the soil. The real payoff shows up the following spring. As shoots emerge, you'll typically notice stems that are visibly thicker and more upright compared to previous years, especially in beds that used to have floppy, weak-stemmed tulips. As buds form and open, well-fed tulips tend to show noticeably larger, more vividly colored blooms, and the flowers often hold up longer before fading, thanks to that extra calcium supporting the plant's cell structure. If you're correcting acidic soil specifically, you may also notice an overall greener, more vigorous look to the foliage, since the corrected pH allows the tulip to finally access nutrients that were locked away before. Give it 1 full growing season for the complete picture. That's when you'll really be able to compare last year's tulips to this year's and see the difference for yourself. So, does wood ash help or hurt your tulips? As you've just seen, the honest answer is it depends entirely on how you use it. Test your soil, apply it lightly, apply it at the right time, and you'll hand your tulips exactly the calcium and potassium they need to come back stronger, sturdier, and more vibrant next spring. Skip the guesswork, ignore the timing, or overdo the amount, and you risk doing real damage to bulbs that took months to build up their energy. That's the real power of understanding your garden. Small, informed choices make the difference between a mediocre bed and a jaw-dropping one. If this kind of practical, nonsense growing advice is what you're after, subscribe now, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video, where we'll break down another everyday garden question you've probably wondered about too.